Hi, I'm Bibi Eastwood and I'm here at the Ballantyne Park Playground, which, if you didn't already know, was completed about 2 months ago. And if you're anything like me, I get really uplifted when something like this happens, something seems to come out of nowhere. But someone had an idea and someone had the energy to make this whole project come together. And that guy is Nicholas de Swart, who's here with me. So thanks, Nick, for coming this morning.
Thanks for asking me.
Okay, great. So the first thing is, how did you get the idea for the park?
Well, we moved into the area about 3 years ago, and we noticed there were a lot of fundraising initiatives going on, breakfast in the park and those sort of things. There was a group of very committed residents who had actually saved this park from being taken over by an unscrupulous businessman who shall remain nameless. Because the park was bequeathed to the residents of the area, and it was going to be taken over and converted into a wedding venue. And so those residents took the businessman to court and took City of Harare to court and actually took back control of the park. And they've done a huge service to all of us by doing that. And they had just started sort of doing fundraising breakfasts and trying to get together a bit of money to restore the park, because at that point it was quite it was sort of falling into disrepair. And so we'd come down and we'd take the kids around the park, and the kids had basically complained that there wasn't any swings. Right. So I think the sort of impetus came from my children. But the way I actually got involved in the park was because of trees, really. So when we'd walk around the park, we'd notice that most of the trees here are not indigenous. So there's a lot of these American ash trees, jacarandas and other things. And I really wanted to plant some trees. So I got in touch with the park committee and sort of asked them if I could plant a few indigenous trees. And they said, yeah, go for it. So we started with that. We planted some trees, and while we were doing that, we noticed that the bridge was falling down, or had actually fallen down. And so we started discussing fixing the bridge, and I approached the team at Borders Timbers, who I happen to know, and they very generously donated a huge load of 90 poles, 90 of these huge poles that you see all over the place.
Yeah.
And we only needed 6 poles to fix the bridge. So we had 84 poles left over. And we were wondering what to do with them, and that combined with
so it started kids, from there.
Combined with the kids wanting a swing, we thought, well, let's just start. And so one day, me and Steve Tucker and you and Sue were in the park talking about it, and we just decided to do it. And we started very organically, just building one piece of the kit at a time.
After another. No, it was really good luck, because I happened to hear about you wanting to build this playground, and I had at the same time been thinking about doing an adults playground version. So it was just really good timing that we could combine everything in one go at one point.
Yeah, and I think that kind of added to the excitement, the idea of building a playground for grown-ups.
Yeah.
I think
we were totally on the same page on that one. Yeah.
So that's where the idea came from, and we've used up most of the poles now, but we've still got a few left, and we'd still like to do a bit more, really.
Yeah. Okay. So that's one of the things, is that we need people's help. We need people to come here and use the park. There's some fundraising things happening, I think. Next Sunday, is it? Yeah,
next Sunday there's a winter crafts fundraiser. There was a very successful playground opening fundraiser a few months ago, and another breakfast in the park a couple of weeks ago. So those fundraisers are very helpful for the ongoing maintenance of the park. And this does cost a lot of money, and a lot of people in the community already put in a lot of their time and resources into maintaining the park. So every second Tuesday, local people send their gardeners down to help with mowing the lawn and clearing up raking the leaves up and so on. And those fundraisers really help with that, and paying for the caretaker's salary and doing some essential maintenance. They don't really get in enough funds to do real capital development in the park.
Okay, like
So
what was
that
possible
has-
with this?
Yeah, so that has to come from sort of big donations over and above what we get in those fundraisers.
Right.
There are a lot of plans. When we had the playground opening, we asked people to
Come up with ideas.
come up with their own
That's right.
ideas, and
I
they all
remember that.
and they all wrote a little idea down on a piece of paper, and those range from a bike track around the park, tennis courts,
Climbing wall,
a climbing wall,
yeah.
a cafe. So there's loads of really good ideas that will make this place an even better community centre than it already is. I think we have to be a little bit careful because not everyone wants everything that people are
gets
suggesting. So there has
Yeah.
to be a mechanism for us to put these ideas back to the residents and see what the residents themselves actually want to see here. Because after all, this park is bequeathed to the residents of Ballantyne Park
Right.
suburb.
Yeah.
So the residents really must be in control of the development. And what I'm trying to do is just catalyse that and be a point of contact for people who want to contribute. And we're hopefully going to put together a master development plan for the park and take that back to residents so residents can say which elements of
Yeah,
that they
your
like
names.
and which ones they don't.
Yeah. There's so much evidence these days that shows that being connected and giving to your community is something that builds sort of self-fulfillment and satisfaction.
And I think in Harare particularly the last few years everything's collapsed so much. People are retreating into their
Contracting.
into their houses where they can control their environment to some extent. They can sort out their water, they can sort out their backup power, they can sort out their private refuse collection because none of those services are being provided anymore.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
people are retreating behind their electric fences and they're not involving themselves as much as they
Connecting.
need to be in the public spaces.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think part of the motivation of getting involved here was that if we want Harare to be a great place to live and bring up kids, we have to take back control of those public
Yeah,
spaces.
yeah.
And I think this park is a great example of how that has worked.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you want to make a donation, we're going to put the information up at the end of this little video. You could probably comment as well if you have ideas. It just helps to kind of build up on what anyone else has said so far. Yes, and hopefully we'll see you at the park soon.